Recording in progress.
Hey guys, Onan here. So I want to do a little longer recording today. Um, I just released a couple of videos talking about the fact that I had formally approached my wife and we agreed that we were going to try celibacy for a while. Specifically, we're going to try it for 2 months. And it really wasn't, I mean, she said it was my decision, and I always knew it would be because she wouldn't really have a problem with it. Her main concern was that I not be an even worse version of myself under that than she thinks I am under NFP. So I guess that's the challenge: is can I be a better person um, under a celibacy environment than an NFP environment? And I'll be honest with you guys. I have more peace right now than I've had in a very, very long time about this, and I'm not sure what to make of that. This is something that I've thought about doing multiple times, generally during a period of frustration and this ill-fated idea that um I'll get back at her by just not having sex with her, which doesn't work. It has zero impact on her. And I always fold like a cheap house of cards the first opportunity we get. So it is something that I've entertained briefly in the past, but only in periods of frustration. And while this came out of some frustration, it was a much more deliberate um, process. And what I came to realize is that I was not really much happier during the infertile times, the quote unquote non-abstaining times, than I was during the abstaining times. Mostly because it goes by very quickly. The days go by much more quickly during the infertile times than the abstinence than the abstinence times. Um, it continues to be very, very difficult to initiate, to really make intimacy happen in our household for a variety of reasons, and I'll talk about a few of those. Number one is um, we have a wonderful, adorable 2-year old who has for quite some time been a complete crapshoot about whether she goes to sleep at night and at what time. And so that has probably been the major barrier to that. I would say second, and very much related to that, is sometimes my wife is just too tired. Um, I would I would wake up in the middle of the night if necessary to make it happen, but my wife, and that's not something she's interested in doing. And then probably the other contributing factors is sort of unique to us, is that my wife has been, um, for the most part, completely resistant to making love anytime except at night after the kids are in bed. I've sort of floated the idea of maybe doing it early in the mornings. She's she's never been interested in that. She's not interested in getting up earlier than she has to do that. So that has been something that she's just not been interested in doing. I've floated the idea on some of those mornings when all the kids are in school except the youngest. Sometimes she sleeps in later. I've suggested a little morning delight after that, but she generally Well, she's always said no to that because she will have showered by then and she doesn't want to shower again. So, and I guess here's the other kind of main factor that that has kind of drawn me to this spot is for a while I had we had been trying quote unquote other acts during the abstinence period, and at first I thought maybe that was the big breakthrough. Um it's something that personally I think, whether you say it's church teaching or conscience or whatever, I have absolutely no qualms about doing. Um but and it was better than the alternative for a while, but the reality is that my wife is pretty conservative in terms of what she's comfortable doing, and she's always drawn the line at any kind of oral stimulation, either way, either giving or receiving. And when we've done other acts, it just hasn't been a very pleasant experience for me, and I end up having to do a lot of the work anyway. And so I've kind of just given up on that as an option, just because of the comfortability that my spouse has just doesn't really lend itself to other acts. I do think that the alternative to celibacy is um sort of active use of other acts in the marriage, but I think it takes, it takes some teamwork. I mean, I mean, like it or not, sex is fairly easy and straightforward, especially for my wife. um, she doesn't really have to work very hard at it, but doing other acts requires, thinking outside the box a little bit, getting past some, I don't know, preconceived notions, comfort levels, whatever, that at least for us, she has just not been able to do. And so other acts turned out not to be any kind of a solution. And so what I was ended up doing is I just would fall back into solo activity, of varying levels of frequency. I Similar to other acts, personally, I feel very confident that they're not immoral, and I would almost say they're almost a moral necessity if you're going to have um an intimate life that doesn't involve contraception. That's just my personal feeling. Don't take any theological advice from me, but that's my own personal feeling. The problem with that is that even without really kind of the moral guilt that goes with it, although I don't think you ever totally eliminate the feeling in the back of your mind that, that maybe God's going to judge me for this, but even without that kind of baggage, solo just isn't, I don't know, it just doesn't do much. For some reason, the relief you get, the bliss period, if you will, you get from solo just doesn't exist in the way that it does with the full conjugal act, at least for me. The pleasure of the experience itself is more or less similar, but obviously you're not getting the benefit of touch and being touched and all that you get with either other acts or conjugal act. And I never really got any kind of a lasting relief from other acts. I think probably because we just weren't doing a very good job at it. So the problem with solo is it's not really much of a remedy. Um, but I think it's almost unavoidable as sort of a pressure relief valve if you are going to be sexually active, because unless you have a spouse that is very committed to intimacy, I think for most of us, we slide into a frequency that is less than we as men would like. And for me, I think the ideal frequency is at least every 4 days, and maybe when times are right, every 2 to 3 days would be absolutely perfect, which is impossible with NFP, right? And quite honestly, was never really possible, even when we weren't having to use NFP, because, well, for all the reasons discussed above and whatever. So so for me, my marriage has been marked by what I would describe as 20, almost 22 years of varying levels of frustration, with the exception of about a 4 month period last year when we made a commitment to every 4 days. And it was, I would say, by far the most fulfilling, wonderful time of our marriage. I felt we had a lot of growth. I was really unbothered by any of this stuff, but it only lasted 4 months because then the cycles came back and then we had to get back on the NFP train. So anyway, and we're going to be on this spiraling death trap of NFP for the balance of our fertile years, barring some significant change in circumstances. So for us, that means I've got probably a minimum of 5 years, 5 to 8 years, maybe as much as 10 years of this, that is probably only going to get worse as my wife's cycles become more infrequent. Maybe it'll help. Maybe it would help a little bit as the children get older, but my wife just never had strong desire for it, and it's always an effort. It's always an effort on her part to make a priority of this. And the reality is, as a mother of nine, even with a couple of them out of the house, there is you can very easily just have nothing left over that you want to devote to making this a priority. So that's kind of the circumstances that led up to this decision. Um, I'm certainly sad about it. I'm sad because I'm, in effect, giving up something that is the most special and fulfilling, one of the most fulfilling parts of our marriage when it does happen. I don't know if this is indefinitely. Um, it could be until menopause. It could be indefinitely. It could be maybe after 2 months we decide this is worse or no better. I don't know. But I want to give it 2 months to try it, 2 cycles, which will be longer than any period in the past. We usually have about 6 weeks of postpartum, but in that I was always just trying to kind of like tread water. I knew we were going to, resume intimacy, and I never made it through those periods of time without solo. This time I'm fully committed to not doing solo, not really because of any moral issue at this point in time, but because I have to get the system to shut down. I have to detox, if you will. I think I need things to kind of die down a little bit. I hope they do. I don't know if they will. I'm guessing my guess is that the first 2 weeks are going to be the worst. And if I can make it 2 weeks and get to 3 weeks, my hope is that the body will start to self-correct and realize I don't need this stuff anymore. That's kind of my hope. So the next 2 weeks are going to be, I think, telling and difficult, but I kind of think they may not be as bad as they've been in the past, only because I have an expectation that flexibility, whereas that's always sort of in the back of your mind when it's just NFP abstaining. Either You could change your mind during it, or at a bare minimum, at the end of the 2 week plus abstinence period, you get to come together again. I don't have that. I don't have a safety net now. So I'm all in on this. I hope, I mean, the only way for this to be a true test is for me to completely shut down the system, no solo or anything like that. We'll see. Maybe I'll end up having a nocturnal emission for the first time in forever. I don't know, but I'm going to see what my body does over the next couple of months. Couple of things that I think might hopefully help our marriage is I think that a couple of things. So number one, she shouldn't have to worry that things I do, either acts of affection or acts of service, are not being done with some ulterior motives. I think she always sort of suspects that, even though I don't think that's really true, but I think her mind kind of goes there. I think second of all, and maybe most importantly, is I think I'll be in a position to have difficult conversations that I've more or less put off, because I'm always afraid of setting her off and being sort of to have sex taken away. Well, you can't take it away because can't take something away that I don't get anyway. So I'm going to try to use this as an opportunity to speak more freely and openly about things that for many years I've been afraid to do. I hope that this leads to some much needed personal growth. I'd like to see if she might be interested in doing some couples therapy. I'd really like to get better about communicating. This may make that worse. This may make that better. I don't know, but I'm hopeful and optimistic it might make it better. It just depends on how difficult it is and how much it interferes with my mood. I just don't know if I'll be short-tempered and sullen. I mean, if the PMAS is just out of control and my loins are burning and I can't sleep at night, then that's not going to be a great situation. But with an understanding that sex cannot happen, may never happen, maybe intellectually and mentally my body can readjust. We'll see. So I'm going to chronicle this journey, both for my own benefit and anyone else out there that listens. I'm going to try to be as transparent as possible about my ups and downs and slip ups and failings if they occur. And we'll see. The next 2 months should be interesting and telling. And if at the end of the 2 months we don't want to do that anymore, then so be it. At least I'll know that that's not really a viable option. So anyway, I know this got a little long, but I really wanted to do a very detailed assessment of kind of how I look at things here on, let's say, day one of this process. So I appreciate you guys for listening. I welcome your comments either here or over on the Discord, and I appreciate your thoughts and prayers. So until next time, everyone, have a good one.